Hi there, and welcome to Conversations Worth Your While, the podcast where we dive into real, meaningful conversations with heart led experts who bring their wisdom, their insight, and a whole lot of humanity to the table. Together, we explore ideas that spark growth, shift perspectives, and help you live and lead more fully, both personally and professionally. And today, we're exploring digital distraction. And this conversation is worth your while because your time and focus are two of your most valuable resources. And if they are being hijacked by endless scrolling or shopping, you are not just losing minutes, you are losing connection with your truest self. So, in this episode, we unpack how your digital habits may be numbing deeper truths, delaying your healing, and distracting you from the gifts that you are here to offer. Because now more than ever, as we all swim in the nonstop current of digital noise, it's time to reclaim your attention, align it with your values, and return to inner peace. So, I am Linda Bucher, and honestly, I have the best job in the world. I help people to get unstuck. It's my superpower. I help high potential, multi passionate humans just like you to find your superpowers to get to that next level and get the most out of life because that is what you are here for. So, I am a transformational speaker and a master certified life coach. But before any of that happened, I was a chameleon living 45 years of my life trying to be what the world needed me to be while quietly feeling like a victim of circumstance. But everything changed when I stopped chasing someone else's version of success and I started showing up as who I really am. So I aligned my life with my truth, my values, and my gifts, and I have never looked back. And that journey, it not only transformed my life, it fueled my mission. And so now it's my honor to help others break free from what's holding them back, to step fully into who they are and unleash their brilliance into this world. Because you know what? You have a rich, full life to lead, and you have gifts that matter, and you have a splash to make. So if you're ready to finally get unstuck and get to that next level and get the most out of your one big, beautiful life, I invite you to come say hello at lindabucher.com because there's so much goodness waiting for you there. Back to today's show, reclaim your time and focus from endless scrolling to inner peace. And today I have the pleasure of being joined by Jessica Globe. She is a digital freedom coach who is making positive ripples in a very unique way because Jessica helps people who feel stuck with digital distraction to focus on what matters most to them. So, hey, Jessica, thanks for being here today.
Hi, Linda. Thanks for having me.
It's exciting. This is a really cool topic. I've never talked with anyone else about this topic, so I'm excited. Can you just first tell us a little bit more about what you do and who you serve and how you're making these ripples in the world? I love it.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, I work with people who feel stuck in cycles of digital distraction, whether they're struggling with mindless scrolling or impulsive online shopping, or even just checking their email too much. I help them to break those habits so they can focus on the things that really matter most to them in life. Because really, at the end of the day, those things are, they're doing them because they're afraid to do the thing that they really want to do. And I want them to do those things because not doing them is so much more painful than actually taking those risks.
Mm,
So I help them via coaching.
that's beautiful. Awesome. Okay, so in our conversation, let's start with how and why the digital world is hijacking people's time and focus.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, these companies are using our psychology against us. They're using really bright red notifications. They are using a sort of slot machine way of putting these things in front of us. So we have our work stacked against us because they know how our brains work. But the good news is we can do things to create distance with them, to put little roadblocks in the way, and to get refocused on our values. So we can say, hey, this isn't actually what I want to be doing with my life and my time, and to refocus there on our values.
Yeah, I'm sure many people are very aware that their focus is being hijacked. I mean, we're all aware pretty much when we're procrastinating. It's not usually a surprise. And we know we're not dealing with what we ought to be dealing with. Um, and but what happens is when we're hijacking our time and our focus, not only are we covering things up, which I think we should talk about next, what those things are that we're covering up, but not only are we doing that, we can't fully we don't fully know ourselves. We don't give ourselves the time to know who we are and what we truly want, to look at our values in any sense. And so what happens is we're not giving the gifts that we're here to give because we really are on this planet to do something important, even if that's within your circle of you and your child, even if the circle is that tight or that small, right? Because we're not all here to be Oprah and impact the world in big giant ways, but we are all here to give our gifts to the world in some way. And when we are distracting ourselves, and it's not that we're so at fault, like you said, this psychology that's being used, like I mean, it's like you put a treat in front of a dog, it's gonna follow the treat around the house, right? Like
Yeah.
this is what's happening. It's really not, it's not our fault. We're not addicts. I mean, I think that's really important to talk about. We are not addicts. I mean, everyone says, oh, you're addicted to your phone. No, we're not true. I mean, that's a different psychology, the addiction psychology, which is a whole different animal we're not going to touch today. So the everyday person scrolling is not an addict. It is being used against us. And what's happening, and maybe against is not quite the right way. I don't think I would say against us. It's like it's like anything that has rewards, we're going to keep doing it. It's rewarding in some way. But as it's rewarding, it's preventing us from doing the important things we're here to do in the world. And I don't mean, make dinner with your family and things like that. We get our shit done. We really do. But it's the deeper part that we truly know ourselves. We can find that purpose. So people want to find the purpose, but then they're unable because they're distracted with bright, shiny objects of scrolling.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you made that distinction about being at an addict versus it being addictive. I think that's a little bit of a different thing. I don't think we have to have addictive personalities because it's just how our brains work. They know, and they use those things to make their apps really enticing. So it's not us, it's really the way these things are designed.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so now let's talking about what happens, like the tragedy of being distracted, right? So I know in I actually know of people who are actively involved in distracting themselves from themselves. They don't want to know who they are. And that happens a lot of times when they don't feel worthy. They're worried that if they discovered who they are, they might not like who they find. And the thing is, discovering who you are is the very basis of living an aligned life, right? So, and you can discover who you are. Like, here's what my top five non-negotiables are: my values, my truths, the people who are right for me, the kind of, the kind of things that I love and enjoy doing, what's natural to me. Like that's the most exciting journey I personally ever went on. And people stop themselves from going on that journey because they're afraid that they might find someone they don't like, which never happens. Thousands of clients, I've never had that happen. The person's like, I don't like who I found, right? They love who they find. But a bigger worry sometimes is what if the people I love don't like who I find? I show up as my true self and then they won't like me, and I'll lose these important relationships, which also I want to promise you, if it's a really important, beautiful relationship, you will not lose it. Those people root for you. They want you to be peaceful, right? And when you're distracting yourself or you're being distracted by something that seems a little more powerful than you are, that scroll and what it keeps giving you, when you are being distracted, you it's a way to avoid looking at yourself and who you are, and because it's scary. But I want to let people know it's not nearly as scary as you think, and it's probably the most beautiful thing you'll ever do in your life. So
Yeah,
yeah, what do you notice people
absolutely.
are covering up with their scrolling?
Well, I find people are covering up, like you said, they're worried about who they're going to find on the inside. And I too have never found someone who was upset with what they found on the inside. They're worried about the risks they're going to have to take. And as someone like me who identifies as a lovable weirdo, I'm neurodivergent. I'm odd. I definitely can relate to being scared of taking more risks because it feels like the world's already a risky place.
Mm.
So, tapping into your creative gifts, what you're meant to do in the world, getting closer to those people that you love can be really scary, but it's so rewarding when you actually take the time to go there and show who you really are and bring that genius that you have underneath all of the numbing that you've put in place.
Yeah, so I think maybe that's a beautiful thing to point out that it feels risky, but it's not, you know? And so like what I tell people when they're feeling the fear of risk, right? And that fear, I say, well, how about we just lower the stakes? Let's lower the stakes. When you think something is going to be blowing up your entire life, then of course no one's going to do that. Who wants to blow up their life? Nobody, right? So how can we lower the stakes? And it's by understanding. It's like information helps you combat fear. There's other things, obviously, that you and I know how to do to combat fear with limiting beliefs and things like that. But for most people, just a little more information. That's why I do this podcast, because I want people to have the information they need to mitigate that risk, like I waited until, I don't know, you probably have heard this quote by Anais Nin, and I won't get it exactly right, but it's something about the bud blossomed when the pain to remain tight in the bud became more than the pain it took to blossom, for the fear of blossoming. And that's what happened to me. I was like 9 years in this, distracting myself in all different ways, before I was ready to know myself and move forward. And the readiness came because it was too painful to hold the true self in. Okay. So there's lots of reasons that people are distracting. But something else I want to talk about too is um, healing. We have this soul shrapnel. We all got it. Everybody's got it. Your job, my job is to get our scalpels out, and our loving scalpels so they don't hurt too much, and help people extract that soul shrapnel, right? Because it doesn't need to be stuck there. It's not meant for you. You've held on to it. There's been reasons. We got to get that out so that you can bloom into this amazing soul of light that you are and give these gifts to the world, right? But when we don't recognize that there's a way to heal, we all we try to do is just avoid the pain, right? And the pain, I mean, you and I know, Jessica, as coaches, that um, unless you're in physical danger or have been, and some people have had trauma. What's truly trauma? Okay, trauma is not what a lot of people consider it. That's more surface. I'm talking true trauma. Everything else, for the most part, the pain is the thoughts that we attach to the circumstance. We attach the story. We create that story, and that story makes us feel emotions that are painful, and that's what we do. So what do we want to do? Distract. We're going to play video games. We're going to endlessly scroll. We're going to talk on the phone, call everybody we know every 5 minutes, so that we don't have to be with ourselves. Because we be with ourselves, we have to be with our thoughts, which means we experience the pain. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why what I do is a little bit different than the other people talking about digital distraction are doing because I do bring in the practical things of how you can change your phone settings and set these things in place to make it easier for you to step away. But I also know that FOMO is a big thing that people are afraid of when they step away. They're afraid of what they're going to find, like we talked about with who they truly are. And so it's really marrying the practical with the spiritual and working through being able to sit with yourself and experience the discomfort. Like a lot of people don't know how to be bored anymore.
I know.
So
It's true.
just being able to sit with your boredom is a really powerful thing that can help you get back your focus, get back your creative energy, your intuition comes back online, and it can just change your whole life on multiple levels.
I love that you use that word online. Okay, the way you did. That's so cool because so our proposal is, how about we trade a little bit of our time scrolling online to bring our intuition and creativity online for us in our
Yeah.
lives? So I love that you just used that word that way. That's really cool. Um, so when we reclaim our attention, right, and we align it with our values, let's talk about that. So like, I was, at the DMV yesterday, and they're like, "Here's your number," right? So now you're like, okay. And I look at what I'm like, okay, it's gonna be about a half hour. What is everybody doing? I look around, they're all scrolling on their phones because they don't know how to sit for a half hour and just be, right? But there's so
Mhm.
many things that you can do, and you can think about it as bonus time instead of like either like endless scrolling just because it'll make time go fast, right? Which, as you get more towards the end of your life, the last thing you want is time to go fast. So let's not make it go fast at any point, you know. Or they're like, oh, I got to catch up on my emails. I got to do all these important things, like while I'm waiting in this line, I'm going to use my time, right? In a positive way. But that's not always the most positive way. Sometimes the most positive way is to sit there and look around at your fellow humans and appreciate who's sitting around you and think, oh, look at that cute little family over there. Or, there was a man who walked by me who had a prosthetic limb and thinking, I wonder what his story is. I hope he's a happy person inside because he must have had some trauma. And just kind of like looking around at our fellow humans, like that's a super cool, important thing for us to do and other things to sit around and just make a list for a half hour. What am I grateful for? Like because I love that each of us humans have the ability to put our focus wherever we want to put it. So we can choose to put it on. Look at the diversity in our fellow humans. Look at what I have all these things to be grateful for. Look what's so cool in my life. What am I looking forward to? Like just to be with yourself, to ask yourself these questions, and they will shift because you're asking positive questions with yourself. They will shift your focus into positivity, and you will actually enjoy life way more. And life is a series of moments. And when you enjoy all as many moments as possible, you look back and you said, I had an enjoyable life. If you're scrolling and it was all gone, you're like, I don't know where my life went. Right. So we can use that as bonus time.
Mhm. Yeah, there's this weird thing that happens when we're on our phone where it feels like that time just disappeared, but that it was never taken away in the first place. So it feels like no time passed and that time's still there, but it's really gone.
Mm,
And that can be extremely challenging to come to terms with because we want to numb out sometimes because life can be challenging. But then when that time's gone, it can be really painful. And I love your DMV example of connecting with people because that's part of what is so insidious about the digital world is it's creating almost this fake connection
mm,
where it's all about, putting on this fake face for people and we're lurking and looking at what our friends are doing, but we're not actually having those deep, close connections. And there's been studies where if you do something nice for a stranger, it actually feels better than doing something nice for yourself. So just simply smiling at someone at the DMV can have a really positive impact on you and on them. So it's a
yeah.
really win-win to build those real world connections.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it keeps us from the deep connections that we do crave as human creatures, right? We are pack animals. We need connection. And one of the biggest complaints I hear from people like not so much my age because I'm 60. So I didn't grow up in the digital world, although it's been here for the past 30 years or whatever, and especially in the last 15, you know. But what I hear from my kids who are all in their 20s is this whole, they're just so fed up with the fakeness, And
Mhm.
my 25-year-old son doesn't have any social media. He said it's so fake, and then I got to wonder, like, because we're all Snapchatting each other. Do they really care about me? Do they like, why don't we just get together and have a conversation and talk to each other, right? So I love that he's realized this at 25 years old. Because what happens in most social media, and in it, you're familiar with this, some coach speak we got, like compare and despair. That's what happens. Compare and despair. So, and what you're doing is you're comparing your insides to other people's outsides. And that's not their insides, that's their outsides. That's what they want you to see. Oh, look at my, beautiful little coffee mug and my beautiful breakfast. Look, see, this is my perfect life, right? And that was like a snapshot they staged and they threw out on social media, and you have no idea how they're second guessing themselves, their own insecurities, the difficulties they might be having with a boss or a relationship, feeling untethered or meh in their life when it looks great on paper, right? You have no idea. You're just comparing your insides to their perfect life that you see, and it's compare and despair. It's a surefire way to feed that insidious belief, which is 1,000 bazillion% wrong, that you're not good enough. So if for one reason you get off social media for 5 minutes, even, it's so that you don't feed that monster belief that I'm not good enough. So that's my drop the mic moment right there.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 31, so social media came out right as I was coming of age. And even my brother, who's just a few years younger than me, he's even more attached to his phone. So it's terrifying to see how these things have gotten so big in our lives. And good for your son for seeing that the way it is. It's probably because he has a great life coach mother who taught him to really be aware of himself and how he feels about things. So that's awesome. And it took me 10 years to get off Facebook and Instagram. So it's really challenging, but yeah, it's not one size fits all. Even just 5 minutes, like you said, if you can cut out one social media break, that time feels so rich and beautiful and big. Like you feel like you got a lot of your day back, even if you
Yeah.
cut out 5 minutes. It's
Right.
amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just talk about like a small thing because I know podcast listener, you are like, oh, that was really interesting. Cool. On to the next podcast. But we want you to not just have a mental takeaway, but something that you can actually do small in your life right now. Something really tiny, really little. It's not going to take, you don't have to blow everything up or, go cold turkey on that's it. I threw my phone in the river. I'm done. Like that's not what we're saying. Okay. So Jessica, what's a small thing that someone can do right now to reclaim that time, to reclaim that attention, so that they can get to know themselves a little bit better? They can begin to heal that soul shrapnel by giving it a little attention, and then begin to stop feeding that "I'm not enough" monster belief, and start um, living a more peaceful life, because this is really about what happens. You reclaim your peace, right? So we can, when we feel more peaceful, we show up better for all our relationships, and this is how we can make our difference in the world, right? So something small someone can do so that all those good things happen.
Yeah, so this is maybe even smaller than you'd expect. I'm not going to tell you to delete anything. I'm not going to tell you to cut back your time online. All I'm going to suggest is to be really curious and mindful when you're doing one digital habit that you feel a little uncomfortable doing, and just watch yourself. How do you feel in your body when you're doing it? How do you feel emotionally? What thoughts are going through your head as you do it? Is it getting better or worse as you're doing it? And as you watch yourself, you're going to get an understanding of how that really makes you feel and if it's serving you. And then you can ask yourself, what am I really seeking when I reach for this digital habit? And that will uncover the deeper thing that you're looking for when you do that.
Oh, what a perfect question. What am I really seeking? I love that. And I want to just like that's a question. I'll tell a little story. I remember my son was 16 and he wanted to lose a little weight. He's a pretty disciplined guy. And he had a girlfriend, and he was like, Mom, can you help me understand what I should be eating and not eating, if I want to lose a little bit weight, because I just want to know. And I said, that's great. So we made a chart and had three columns on it. The first column was, you can always eat these things. These are the super great things. They're good for your body. They're excellent. The middle one is, these are some sometimes foods that, it's okay to have, It's okay to have. I just wouldn't have most of your diet come from these middle ones. And the ones over here are like, these are the indulgences. I'm not saying say no. You should have, you should, if you really want to have them, but recognize that they're not going to get you to your goal as fat, maybe not at all. So you can pick and choose now that you know what columns things go in. And we put that on the fridge. And he was very disciplined. And then he and his girlfriend broke up. And I picked him up from work. He worked at a grocery store, and I picked him up from work. And he had been sad about his girlfriend. And he gets in the car and he's got a can of Pringles and he's elbow deep in these Pringles. Oh, and he's munching on these Pringles. And I said, "Oh, Bud, you've been doing so good, with your healthy choices. Um, what's going on with the Pringles?" And he's chomping. He goes, "I miss Kayla." Like this is his girlfriend. He was 16. And I said, "Is she in that can?" And he said, "No, she's not." And he put the lid on the can and he gave it back to his sister and said, "Jesse, you can have the rest of these." And I was really proud of him but he just was too young, or maybe not, he was aware he felt bad. But that question of what am I truly looking for? He was truly looking for comfort. And then he realized there's not comfort in a can of Pringles. It's just a can of Pringles. And I'm going to be mad at myself when I'm done. So sometimes we're this distraction, we're looking for comfort, right? So we might be scrolling for like I like to scroll funny animal videos because they crack me up, but it's not like I'm missing laughter in my life because I laugh all day long. My husband's hilarious and we have such a great time. But I love laughter and I love animals. So I love to look at that, but it does get a little boring, So I'm like, what am I after? Well, I don't have a dog, so I can watch the doggies. I can watch the kitties because I don't have an animal, So I'm like, what am I? So I'm being aware, what am I getting out of this? But as I keep doing it and keep looking to be even more aware, why am I still doing this? What am I after? And like you said, am I getting happier the more videos I scroll to watch these funny animals? Or am I just looking for something to be entertained? Oh, that's interesting. I'm looking for entertainment, right? So that is just an example, so I love that. Thank you for that step. Become aware and curious and ask yourself, what am I really after right now? So great. Such a beautiful question. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. All right. Well, this has been super fun, Jessica. I really appreciate your expertise here. I think this is something people would really, like to be able to do. And you gave us such a nice, simple way to just become aware. And that's where anything starts with awareness. So thank you so much for being my guest today on Conversations Worth Your While.
Yeah, I really appreciated being here and had a great time.
Good, great. So, do you have something like to share with people, or if they want to contact you, like, what can you point people to?
Yeah, each week I post a article about different things that you can do that are practical and some mindset stuff to step back from the digital distractions. You can find me at jessicaglobe.substack.com. And I also have a 2-minute digital quiz that can help you figure out where you are on the digital overwhelm spectrum. And then I'm going to send you some personalized tips in your email afterwards.
Oh, that's very cool. Awesome. So I have some of those links. Yep, I got them. And I'll make sure they get put into the show notes so people can grab those. So thank you so much. All righty. Well, everyone, that is our show. Once again, I'm Linda Bucher on a mission to inspire and impact millions of people to know their worth and share their gifts, deliberately creating big, beautiful ripples in this world. So if you're finally ready to get unstuck and get to that next level and get the most out of your life, head on over to lindabucher.com. It's a great first step. And if this episode sparked something in you, be sure to like it, to subscribe to this podcast, and share it with someone that you care about. And come back next week for another honest, uplifting conversation to help you grow. And until next time, just make sure that you've made this conversation worth your while by fueling the spark that it ignited.